So when I do stencils, I'll always have like a solid surface to work on. I mean, it just makes the imprint of the stencil a lot better on the back of the paper. Makes the lines a lot more sharper. And right now I'm just kind of selecting all the kind of dark fur texture areas, making sure I don't miss any detail. You can kind of be careless with this part of the stencil because it's just fur. I mean, you can't really get fur wrong. Well, you probably can, but like I always have problems with wiping the stencil away or the detail away, but I always keep my reference with me. So if I have my reference, the picture I stenciled, and my stencil on the skin, I can always refer back to where the image is or where the little shape is, so that I never get lost, because it's like paint by numbers. You kind of follow the image, you know. So when I stencil fur, I always will try to only stencil the dark parts of the fur, but 9 times out of 10 my brain gets carried away and will always kind of select every single little bit of fur. And it's kind of hard to not get confused, but as long as you have the dark areas and the shapes are all kind of there, it'll always look right. You just need to make sure you leave enough space for all the highlights. Okay, I think we are done. A little bit confusing and busy and hard to read, but that's how I like to do things. Looks like it'll be fun. Sweet. All right. So I use rubbing alcohol or like hand sanitizer or anything like that that has pure alcohol in it, just to be able to dry out the skin, so it takes all the oil off the surface of the skin, which helps the stencil stick for a lot longer. At the moment I'm using Stencil Anchored by Nico. I use this when I have a really detailed stencil because it holds the stencil really tight and it hardly ever smudges. And other times I'd use Electrum for larger pieces, but for small kind of detailed stuff I use Stencil Anchored. Alright, I'll get you to stand up. Just kind of arm straight down in front of you, like stand straight, face me. Yep, down there, perfect. Most of the time I'll use computer paper, just because it transfers a lot more carbon onto the skin. But if it's like a tricky area to stencil, then sometimes I'll use like the transfer kind of stuff that is attached to the stencil paper, because it will just kind of fit to the skin a lot easier than computer paper does. What do you think?
Yes, it's okay.
I think like it could be straighter, but I think it's kind of cool having it on an angle a little bit. Yeah, awesome. Well, like I put a lot of detail into my stencils because I want my tattoo to be super detailed. So, I mean, if you're following something to create something, but the thing you're following is super basic and you want to make it super detailed when you're tattooing it, it's going to be a lot harder to do, you know, because there's not enough information for you to follow. You got to kind of make it up as you go along. Whereas for this, when I make my stencils, I make sure there's all the information in the image so that I can make it look as real as possible. So I'll block in the whole bottom, or the whole, like large areas in any tattoo really, I'll block them in with a large magnum just to get the area blocked in. But if, say for the edge of that fur on the bottom of the chin, it needs to be really sharp. So the magnum will get it sharp, but it's just better to come back with my 5-liner and sharpen up all those edges that I want to be super crisp, because it might look crisp like right now when it's fresh with a magnum, but when it heals, the consistency of the needles, like the concentration of the needle grouping, is so much looser in a magnum that it doesn't pack as well. So the lines with that 5-liner are going to hold up a lot longer and a lot sharper than any mag line. Half the reason about, you know, like realism always gets flack from traditional tattoo artists and other people, you know, it's never going to last, it's going to look like shit in 5 years, blah blah blah. I believe most realism looks like shit in 5 years because those artists did it with a magnum. And if you tattoo the whole image with a magnum, there's no sharpness and no hardness in the image, but there's no concentration in the needle grouping. So if you know, it's spaced out so much that you imagine you're doing this like little circles trying to pack whatever, but in 5 years when your skin loses collagen and loosens up a bit more, it just kind of disperses so much faster than, like if you see Sailor Jerry tattoos and Old Navy tattoos, the color is gone from inside them, green, red, whatever they had, but the lines are still there, and it's because of the concentration of the needle grouping. So if you're putting all the detail in with liners and round shaders, the concentration in the needle grouping is saturating the skin so much in that area, it's going to last a lot longer than the mag work. So when I do my stencils, I do them by hand. So I'll always have like a printed out picture of the tattoo, and I'll stencil over that like you just saw. So I keep that with me the whole time. So whenever I'm lost, or I'm like, you know, which bit is black, which bit is brown or lighter, I just look back at my stencil that I drew and I match the shapes and I go, so that bit's the black bit. You know, so it's like paint by numbers. It makes it a lot easier for you because you can just look back at your stencil and, there's the bit, and make it. My machine runs all the time just because I'm just lazy. I just don't turn it off. I don't know. And like it handles it. It runs, you can run them for like 14, 15 hours and nothing happens, you know, it doesn't heat up. But I mean, because I don't use a foot pedal, I use a critical power supply, which has the little button in the middle to stop and start. And if I put it down, it's quiet, it doesn't make noise. I mean, if it was a coil machine and it's sitting there like the whole time, then I'd turn it off, but it's sitting there like, so I don't really bother turning it off. A lot of tattooers will rest the tip on the skin when they're tattooing, and I think this is like, one, it's abrasive, so like it'll make the skin a bit rougher, but two, it makes it's harder to kind of tattoo. If you hang the needle out a bit further and use the tip of the needle to do the work, like it doesn't matter how far you hang it out, you're never going to bury that needle in, so you use the tip and it just gets in so much faster and so much cleaner. If you're using, if the tip's rubbing the skin, it's definitely going to damage the skin a lot more and take longer to heal. So you can see here I'm kind of halfway through the darks and the midtones, and you can see little sections of skin left in between little bits of the fur, and that's super important when you're doing fur because you need highlights. The highlights are what's going to bring the fur to life, you know, but you definitely need darks, but you need to kind of have enough patience and have enough kind of, I don't know, I'm a bit gung-ho sometimes, and when I go to tattoo, I'll just go crazy with the darks, and then I realize I haven't left enough skin for highlights, and I'll start just using liners with highlighted colors, like lighter colors over the other colors, you know, and it still works, but it's brutal for the customer. So it's good to kind of practice and try to get good at planning it out and kind of leaving enough negative space and enough skin to give yourself highlights later on when you're doing fur. It's another important thing about like solid areas of black. I mean, those edges of the teeth, they probably look fine, but you need to remember that if you've done those edges with a mag, that's going to get really soft really fast over time. So even if it looks sharp, you need to blast the edges, and like solid areas like lines, edges of the teeth that you want to be sharp and solid, you need to blast them in with either a liner or a round shader, because the saturation again is going to hold that line a lot sharper and a lot tighter than a magnum. So here you can see I'm kind of moving up in the tattoo, and I start blocking in all the blacks again, but in the middle section. So like I'll do blacks in the bottom section, then I'll do the dark colors in the bottom section. Maybe the midtones as well, depending on what it is. Fur, it didn't really matter. Then you move up to the kind of middle section, kind of break it into threes almost every time. Move up to the middle section, do all the blacks, do all the darks, move back down to the bottom, do the midtones and the lights, not the whites, just the lights. Then come back to the middle, do the midtones, move up, do the blacks in the top part, do the darks, come back down, do the like lighter midtones and the lights, no white, same thing for the top, and then come back and do the whites over the whole piece. So that's the kind of process how I kind of do it, because otherwise you run the risk of staining your lighter colors with the blacks and things like that. But you also kind of, you lose place if you start jumping around everywhere and doing this, and you never kind of fully complete an area because you're jumping around so much. Whereas if you fully focus on the fur under the chin, finish this area, fully focus on the lip, finish that bit, fully focus on this side bit of fur, finish that bit, then you're never going to not finish an area, and you're never going to lose your place on what you're doing. So when I'm tattooing, I have two squirty bottles that I use. I have one that's just plain distilled water, and then I have one that's like diluted with green soap. I use one with distilled water for the whole tattoo pretty much, or until the entire stencil's gone and it's already been tattooed and everything and I don't need the stencil anymore. And then I'll use the green soap, because the green soap has alcohol in it, and the alcohol is going to take your stencil off a lot faster than just plain water. The 5-liner for me is like, so like I'll block in areas with a magnum, and then I'll come back and I'll sharpen bits up with a 5-liner. Or if I'm doing eyes or lips or something like this, the 5-liner is really important. But what I use the 5-liner for the most in my work is for creating the contrast in sharpness and blurriness, because if I'm doing something blurry, I only use my 15 Magnum because it allows me to not put detail in because it's such a big needle and I can't put detail in because it's so large, and it creates the blurry effect really well. But if you contrast that effect with the tightness and sharpness of a 5-liner, the contrast between the clarity is crazy. So that's, for me, the 5-liner is just to accent the very sharpest parts of the tattoo that I want to be really crisp. So you can see here the stencil is pretty much a whole A4 page, the whole image is. He did have quite big forearms, but even if it was a skinny person, I'd do the same thing. Because for me, it's terrible when you see people have a forearm tattoo and it's just from like the elbow ditch to halfway down their forearm, and there's this little tiny section in the wrist that isn't tattooed because they just wanted to do this little piece, and if that's what the customer wanted. But I mean, if you're doing portraits or something like this, one, the bigger the tattoo, the longer it's going to last and the more detail you can get into it. But two, you should fill up the area, you should fill up the space you have to work with and utilize the amount of space you have to work with and use it to your advantage. Because if I did this bear super small, or like even half the size to fit on his forearm, it's not as impressive. And I mean, it's so small that the detail is going to blur together in time, and it's not going to, it'll still hold up, but it's just not going to look as good. So I think you should, at any time when you're talking a customer into a piece or they're telling you about a piece, you should always go for bigger is better. Admittedly, the budget, whatever, things happen, but if you can push it, then I think it's the best thing to do for realism, because the bigger the piece, like if it's a small portrait, it looks easy to get the detail, but it's not easy to make that detail last and be perfect. The bigger it is, the more space you have to work, the more, obviously it's going to take longer, so you have more time, you can be a little bit more relaxed, and you also have a lot of space and a lot of room to put detail and make sure that detail is solid and it's going to last. Because there's nothing worse than doing a good realistic tattoo and in 10 years it looks like a smudge because you did it small and everything's tight. And I mean, I'm the worst for that. Sometimes I do small little faces on basketball players and stuff, but again, with those pieces, it's not about the face of the player. Like, if it's a whole scene of Kobe dunking and Kobe's face is the size of a penny, why does, like, on Instagram, everyone, oh, look at the face, he looks blah, blah, blah. Dude, it's about the image. It's about the pose, the dunk, the basketball hoop, and you know what I mean? So the face, it's still important. I want the face to look good, but it's just the fact of doing it so small that it's never going to look good. It's never going to last, and it's never going to be perfect. So the bigger, the better, I think. So I usually do a lot of long sessions when I tattoo. All my tattoos are sessions even are between 8 to 12 hours usually. And I think the way I tattoo is, because I tattoo from bottom to top pretty much, the skin's not getting irritated because I'm not wiping over it all the time. But two, one, it has to do with the injector, because I think it's really good for realism, because it's hard but it's gentle. I don't know how to explain it, but like it still puts the color in really quickly, but it's not tearing up the skin and it's not damaging the skin. So, and because the way I kind of tattoo is hard and fast, like I kind of get that area done, move on. Like I'm not being really light-handed or anything, but I'm not spending a long time in a certain area. So each kind of pass is single pass, bang, we'll do that bit, do this bit, do this bit, do this bit. So I'm not overworking areas. And I think that is the reason why the skin stays so well. Like 12-hour tattoo, and I haven't tattooed the bottom part for 8 hours and it still looks good, is just because I haven't damaged the skin too much. One, because I hang my needles out and I use the needle to do the work instead of resting the tip on the skin and like scratching or abrasing the skin. And because with color realism, you just kind of have to be confident, even if you're not. You have to kind of go, it's this color, and boom, put it in. And once you put it in, move on. don't freak out and go, oh, it looks a little bit different in the photo, and start doing a little bit darker over the top or lighter, and because you're just going to confuse yourself. It's better to just commit to it, boom, put it in, next one, because you're not going to overwork the skin. It's going to heal really fast, and it's not going to, like when you're taking a photo of something and you can see damaged parts in the skin, it's not nice. No one likes to do it. It's always going to heal okay, usually, but it's more about you as an artist knowing what's happening with the skin, and for me it's important to not damage the surface. And it's happened a lot, to be honest, with 2-day tattoos. The second day, if I'm wiping too much in an area or if it gets dirty, I'll notice like the top layer of skin will peel off in certain bits, certain areas, and it freaks me out. I'm like, fuck, the surface of the skin's really like it's damaged. It's just because it's been moist for ages and it's soft, and then you've been wiping it a lot, whatever. It'll usually heal fine, or a little bit of ink will drop out, but it's something that scares the crap out of me every time I tattoo if that happens. So found ways to kind of try and avoid it, and so far this is working. So that's what's happening there. So this bit, you can kind of see the kind of irregular hand movements and irregular patterns that I was talking about to create fur. Because most people will use a Magnum or something like that to do all the fur texture, but it'll look way too uniform. It'll just look like fuzzy, kind of fluffy marks, whereas I'm putting all the detail in with round shaders and liners because it creates all the depth and the holes in the hair, and then so if you're not thinking about all that, it's going to look super flat no matter what you do. Even if you're using a mag for the whole thing, it'll just look like loose and flat. It's not going to look sharp enough. But the irregularness of all the shapes is what's super important, because if you start following a pattern and making it look too uniform and look too kind of like all the hair goes this way type thing, it just ends up looking like, it doesn't look real. It looks kind of fake, looks like a cartoon or something like this. So I think just the attention to the kind of all the different shapes in the fur and all the different shapes that all the hair makes is super important when you're doing any kind of animal with fur. So the customer came to me and said that he wanted to get a grizzly bear. And I mean, if you Google search grizzly bear images, majority of them are just kind of placid, sitting there with a cub maybe staring at the camera. Like they're not visually pleasing. And I mean, it's still a nice photo, it's still a good image of a bear, but as a tattoo, you're looking for either a kind of wow effect, because it's it's a piece of artwork, you want people to like it, but at the same time you kind of have to pick the best image that is going to make the best tattoo, because the reference is so important, the image is so important. Same as doing family portraits. People come to you with cell phone pictures from 20 years ago or 10 years ago, and the dude's 20 meters away and you have to zoom in on the photo and it's pixelated, and they're like, can you do that? And it's always, if you buckle when you do it, it's going to be a bad tattoo. It's just, the image is everything. So with something like this, I was looking through all the images and all of them just look kind of boring. So then you search roaring or, like mouth open grizzly bears, and there's a whole bunch of photos of them. But again, you're looking for contrast, which is the most important thing when it comes to realistic tattoos. There has to be a good amount of white and there has to be black. Black is so important when it comes to realism. If there's no black in the tattoo or hardly any black, it's going to fall apart and look terrible in 2 years, 3 years, 5 years, however long. Because the black is the only thing that will last forever and hold up forever. I mean, again, you look at Sailor Jerry tattoos or old Navy pieces, dudes from 40, 50 years ago. The only thing that's really visible is the black lines that they put in. And even then it was bad ink. So now we have formulated black pigments which are going to hold up a lot longer. But if you fail to put the black in for a realistic piece, or if it's like a portrait of a kid and it's super washed out, super light on the face, there's no shadows or anything, it's never going to look good because there's not enough black and there's not enough darkness holding the piece together. So with this image,
this was the one that had the best contrast. It had a lot of highlights on all the fur, which made the fur stand out, which means it's going to make a good tattoo. But it also had the kind of striking, aggressive kind of look of a grizzly bear. The tongue and the mouth I really liked. That was my favorite part. That's what I wanted to tattoo, was like all the kind of rolled up flesh and skin. It kind of makes it fun, you know? Whereas if he had his mouth closed and was just kind of looking at it, like, it wouldn't be as visually pleasing or as interesting. So I think it's just about, obviously you have to do what the customer wants, but to an extent you got to kind of bite the bullet and tell them, no, look, I don't want to do that because it's just not going to make a good piece. We need to do this, or you have a solution or you have an idea, but it's never good buckling on what you know is best to suit a customer. I'd rather not tattoo that person because you're hindering your own work. You know you're hindering it and you're not comfortable from the start. So, and if you're not comfortable, you're not going to make a good piece. So I think, yeah, contrast super important, and anything that's kind of striking will kind of get people's attention, you know. And so this image is a perfect example of like where to put the detail. It's kind of like a painting. You always want to kind of draw the viewer's eye into, like if it's a portrait, you put the most detail and the most effort into the eyes, the lips, the nose, because you want people to look at the face. You want to make sure the face is perfect. The same sort of thing with any kind of other realistic tattoo. You want to draw the viewer's eye into what you want them to be looking at. So the fur still has detail in it, but it's not as sharp and not as crisp and not as looked after as the middle section, the mouth, the nose, which is the most important part of that image. It's what kind of makes that image. So the rest of it can kind of blur out and fade out on the edges because it's not important. You want the viewer to focus right in on your detail, right in on the section that you want them to look at. Anytime you're doing a forearm, when you're doing like the kind of inside of the forearm, when they have to twist kind of awkwardly, the customer always gets uncomfortable, and it's uncomfortable for you too because you have to twist weird. So once it gets to that part of the arm, I always will change position and lie them down on their stomachs and get them to put their arm out kind of sideways and just rest it on the armrest. And this for me is perfect for me because I can be on top and not twisting real weird, and my back doesn't get sore. And they're a little bit more comfortable, but they're not twisting as well, because the twist is what kind of almost kills the appointment, because half the time they tap out due to shoulder and uncomfortableness, not the tattoo pain, you know? So it's like, in one state, you need to be the most comfortable as the tattoo artist because you do this on a daily basis and they're just in there for the day. But if you need to get work done, your customer needs to be comfortable too. So it's kind of a fine balance. So here, starting the background, I'll always use my 15 Magnum for backgrounds. Like I said before, same with blurry effects. Just because it's a nice big needle, it stops me putting detail in really, and it covers ground, but mainly it just has that separation of sharpness. So it makes the background really soft, but it pushes the background way back and brings the whatever subject forward into the viewer's eye, you know, it makes it stand out a lot more. So like if a customer's going to break the tattoo session up into 2 days, or even if it's more, if it's like a huge piece and it's going to be like an ongoing, I'll always pick a place in the image where I know I'm going to stop. I know it's going to be enough work, but I know that it's a flat part of the image, or like, say like with the bear, I'd stop at the nose and keep all the outside stuff for afterwards. So I'll do the mouth and the nose, and then the next session, it makes it super easy to reapply this part of the stencil because all the lines are already there. You just need to reapply the side, you know. Whereas if you stopped it through the middle of everything, it makes it really difficult to get it perfect again, you know. So it's easy just to pick a place where you know it's going to be super easy to reapply it and reapply it that way. So here I actually changed needles. Because I was starting on the lights and highlights of the fur and the mouth. I changed needles, got new setup. So this is just the newer Cheyenne cartridges that are cheaper than the other ones, manufactured in India, I believe, and they're awesome. For me, they're almost a little bit better, just because of the tip feels more precise. It feels more pointy, so I can follow the needle a bit better. And it doesn't have the two-piece cartridge, so I can't pull off the plastic end, which I do all the time with the normal Cheyennes. So again, you'll just notice when I'm putting in whites, like solid whites, I'll use a round shader usually, or a liner. But you want that saturation to be solid, but again, the hand motion's super slow because you want that white to be so prominent and so bright and sharp, so that because the white is the one thing that makes realism. If you didn't put white in a portrait or white in any of the tattoos, it wouldn't bring it to life, because the white is the thing that sets it away from the skin. You know, like just black and colors, it's still going to look like a tattoo. The second you put white in, it changes the whole dynamic of the tattoo. So if you're not taking your time and precision putting your whites in, it's always going to have that little aspect, like it's lacking something, you know. I think the whites are the most important part.